Let's just expand our PureRef window and have a look at these keys. So we can assume that all of these are the same shape, apart from these appear to be flat, whereas these ones have got a little bit of a highlight here, and that goes for all of these here, and then these are flat again. Then we can take whatever we build here and we can use that to build all the other keys, apart from these, which seem to have a little bit of a shape in here, and obviously the enter key, and this, I'm guessing it's a power button. Let's see what those keys look like from different angles. So yeah, there's your concave bit there, and these are flat. So let's have that one zoomed in. Let's move that out. Let's go to top view, X-ray on, turn on our top reference image. Let's turn on our keys collection. Let's make sure we're in the keys collection. Let's move cursor to world origin. Let's build a cube. Let's scale the cube down, turn off snapping. Let's move that up above the F1 key. Let's keep scaling until it's close to correct size. So having built this already, I've decided I'm going to make the keys 16.3 by 16 millimeters. So 16.3 wide by 16 millimeters tall. And then the spacing between them will be 19 millimeters from center to center and 18.5 from center to center this way. So let's just enter 16.3 in there, 16 in there. And then for the height, which is Z, let's put in something like 5. Now let's apply the scaling. Then let's move that out the way. Let's check that snap base is set to active. Let's move the origin to the top of the key. Turn off the modifiers on the base. Then let's move that key and snap it to the top of the base. And you can turn those modifiers back on again. Go to top view. Let's rename that key. Let's zoom in a bit further. G, and then tap it into position. Okay, so we're good there. Edit mode. Let's select the bottom face and delete it. Now let's select these outer edges and add a mean bevel weight 1 to it. Back in top view, zoom in a little bit further. And then let's add a bevel modifier and a subdivision modifier. Then let's change this to weight. Let's reduce this to 2. Let's increase the segments to 5. Zoom in a little bit further. And let's reduce that to 1.75. Let's change the profile to 1. I think we can reduce the segments to 3. Well, actually, it's starting to peel off there, so I think maybe we'll keep that at 5, and let's increase that back to 2. Let's go 3, so that's looking good. Let's just move the keys collection just below the reference, so it's the second collection. So now if I select that, turn on wireframe, deselect it. Now if I hold down Shift and 2, I can toggle that key on and off. See how close I am to the reference image. And actually, turn snapping off. I want to just nudge it over a little bit. And now for the fillet on the top there. So to create that one and to maintain a non-destructive workflow, we're going to select these vertices, add them to a vertex group. Then we're going to add another bevel weight modifier to that, move it above the subdivision modifier, change limit to vertex group, reduce that down to something like 0.25, increase segments to 2, 3. You need to make sure you define which vertex group it's being applied to. And let's just compare that to our reference images here. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's go back to our measurements. Now we're going to apply an array modifier to that. So our X distance was 19 millimeters, and then let's increase those so they go all the way to the end and including the power key. Then I'm going to duplicate this and move it in X by 19 millimeters, minus 19. And we can delete the array modifier from that. Zoom in, select those vertices on the end, and then move them out so they're close to the reference image underneath. Zoom in a bit further, and we want to type in a rounded number in here. So let's try 9.4, and that looks good. Next, we're going to select this row of keys, and then we're going to duplicate it down in Y by 18.5. So minus 18.5, and then we're going to go Shift R, Shift R, Shift R. Let's continue by selecting this row, moving them over like so. And we want this to be perfectly aligned with that. So if we isolate these two, we know that the origin point of that is exactly 16.3 divided by 2. So what we'll do is grab that vertex, separate it, then select it and move it over in X by 16.3 divided by 2, then move it down a touch. Now we can select that one, turn snapping on, and we can snap to that vertex, and then we can delete the vertex. So that should give us those. Next, these ones look like they're good where they are, except for perhaps, oh no, I thought that might be too many of them. Okay, but that's good. So next, let's grab this one, duplicate in X, and then move it over by -19. Delete the array modifier, isolate these two, edit mode, grab these and align them to that. Bring everything else back in. Let's grab this one, turn snapping off, move those over slightly and see if there's anything that I can align them to. I can't think of what I would. So I'm just going to move these to position just by eye. Let's move over here and let's reduce the array count to 12. Then duplicate X, -19, isolate these two, delete the array modifier, select both, edit mode, snap these to that, bring everything else back in, move these over. I'm just going to turn up the opacity on my top reference image. Let's have a look on the other side. Let's reduce the array count, then again duplicate in X by -19, isolate these two, edit mode, snap these to there, delete array modifier on that. For these three here, we could grab these because they will be aligned, so we'll just duplicate those down in Y and we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, so -18.5 times 4. Then let's reduce the array count. Next we're going to grab that, duplicate it in X, and we're going to go 19 times 1, 2, 3 and delete the array modifier from that. Then we're going to isolate these. So we can't get to the vertices of this because this isn't actually geometry. This is the result of an array modifier. So what we can do here instead is if we duplicate that, apply the array modifier, select the original and hide it, select both of these, edit mode, align these to that. Then what we can do is delete those. Now let's select that one, move it down in Y by -18.5, turn everything else back on. Edit mode, let's delete those and move that up. Delete these, isolate these, grab these and snap those to that. Bring everything else back in. Now let's select this again, delete those. Now let's select the spacebar and set the origin to center of mass. Then we can select these keys, isolate them, select the spacebar again, and let's move our cursor to selected. Let's make sure pivot is set to 3D cursor. Now let's select these, duplicate them, and then go scale X -1. Bring everything else back in. Let's select those. Let's apply the mirror modifier. Let's separate this one. Then the origin point of that will be right in the middle of these two. So what we can do here is add a mirror modifier here. If we reset the pivot point back to active element, we can grab these, move them down. Make it a nice round 8.3. Then let's duplicate that, move it in X by 19. Isolate that. Let's move origin to center of mass. Let's hide our modifiers for a sec. Let's zoom in a bit. Move the origin point up to that edge. Turn those back on again. And let's reset the mirror to Y. Let's move the mirror above the subdivision modifier. And then let's turn off the mean bevel weight from those edges there like that. And then let's bring everything else back in. If we just delete that face, we can move these down, turn off merge. And then in subdivision modifier, let's turn on keep corners. So there will be a gap in there, but this is our quick and dirty model, so it doesn't matter. Let's bring these back in. And then let's repeat the same thing here as we did on the other side. So we're going to grab this one, duplicate, increase array, apply array, isolate those. So we're going to have to repeat the exercise here. So we're going to duplicate these, select the other ones and hide them. And then we're going to apply this array modifier and let's delete all of those. Select these, edit mode, grab those and snap them to there. Let's delete those now and let's move down to this one. Duplicate, increase, apply, isolate those, grab that one, snap it to there, grab all of those, delete. Now let's tackle this enter key. So we can start with this key here. So as before, let's duplicate that one. Let's hide the one underneath. Let's apply the array modifier. Let's delete everything but that. Bring it back in again. Reduce the array to 12. So if we just hide those for a sec. So now, because we have a fillet going on the inside as well as the outside, I can't think of a way to do this non-destructively. So we're just going to build these in manually. Let's turn off this bevel for now and let's delete this one. Let's delete those bottom vertices for now. Now that I'm happy with this corner fillet, I can duplicate it and copy it over to the other sides. Join the dots and let's see what we can do here. Okay, now let's select that edge, extrude it down in Z by 5. Let's select that edge loop, put a face in there, see what the damage is. Damage is quite damaging. Select all, we calculate outside, and we are just going to select all and inset faces. We're going to hide those faces quickly. We're going to select that edge loop. We're going to delete this vertex group and then create a new one and add that to it, which is going to turn on that bevel modifier. And we just need to add a little bit more geometry in here because I think we're trying our luck here with this end gone. So we're just going to go from here to here. And I think we're good there. And that is how we would build the QWERTY keys on a QWERTY keyboard. And next, let's have a look at that screen and build that.